I truly believe if you look through to the statistics and specifically around industrial, and I think it's what we're seeing in the transportation sector as well from a trucking standpoint, we are in an industrial recession. If we can respect the rules of humanocracy and what comes with that and the using the tools in the toolbox to help you execute your business but own your business, I think that's really what we need. And I have used that time and time again with my leaders and said, look, guys, complain all you want, and it ain't fun. And sometimes the work's hard, but if not us, then who?
We were in negotiations.
We're investing in real estate. They're winning, they're making money.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Real Estate Educators Podcast, where we provide the education you can build on. I am your host, Kevin Amolsch. Once again, we are back. We're having so much fun with this podcast. We're helping real estate investors and real estate educators. So you're out there building a portfolio, maybe fixing and flipping houses, investing in properties, or you're out there educating other real estate investors, maybe trying to attract some investor business. Well, this is the podcast for you. I have a super special guest, Mr. John Brooks, with me today. A little twist on something that many of us have talked about on this show. It's industrial warehouse investing, but I'm excited about this one because it's going to be a little different than some of our other episodes. So the company is WOW. Is that right, John? Warehouse on Wheels. And it seems like it's a pretty big powerhouse in this industry, winning lots of accolades, which we were going over right before we hit record. And we're like, okay, that's a lot. So what I'm going to do here is, John, just go ahead and let's get started with, first of all, welcome to the show. And let's go ahead and get started with you telling us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into WOW.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Love what you guys are doing. I was interested to come tell the WOW story today because I think it's a little different twist on the industrial space. So Warehouse on Wheels is basically a business that rents 53-foot dry vans, those trailers you see running up and down the highway behind a semi. We buy those when truckers are done with them. We give them a fresh coat of paint. We give them a fresh set of mechanicals, make sure they're safe, dark, and dry. And then we rent them to manufacturers, distributors, retailers, folks that just need a little bit more space. So as some of your listeners may know, if you've ever worked in a warehouse or a manufacturing facility, there's never enough room. I often say we're akin a little bit to self-storage. So I'm renting a self-storage place right now down in Florida that's holding like 5 things because we can't get rid of them. And I've paid for it like 3 times over, probably holding those 5 things. We're a lot like that, but on an industrial level, a mobile space. So for us, we started this business in 2018. We bought a family business that had 2 locations and about 4,000 trailers. And as of this morning, I've got 37 locations and 37,000 trailers. So from Quebec to Monterrey, Mexico, and then all across the U.S. And what we've done here is we've purchased trailers when truckers are done with them. We've also acquired about 20 other family-owned businesses that we provided them an exit plan, if you will. And so we're rolling up this national footprint. Our goal is to grow the business to 100 locations and 100,000 trailers. We think we have a sight line to that, but really just solving the space constraint. So in our world, providing that 53-foot dry van when you need just a little bit more space in your warehouse, and even providing the parking for that dry van. So that, think of that just raw ground, if you will, 5 acres of gravel kind of thing. So a couple different twists on the real estate play.
Yeah, it is interesting. When I hear you saying this, I don't think real estate at all, even though I suppose it is sort of like that. So I want to get into like how the idea came up, how you've had so much success and where you're going, but tell me a little bit about you. Like what got you interested in this?
I was a customer. So I was early in my career in a CFO, chief operating officer kind of role, and I was running a warehouse that imported containers from Asia. Back in the day, in the early 2000s, we provided all the stuff that went in the back of a Walmart supercenter in the grocery section. So all the stuff they used in the deli, the meat department, the dairy, things you don't see behind the scenes. And so to do that, we would deliver like 12 truckloads full of stuff. So the stuff was coming in from Asia, all out of sync and just disorganized. We didn't know what we were doing. We were a small business, and my warehouse was running over. And so one night I looked out in the parking lot and realized I had rented 150 storage trailers, actually from a guy who's still a competitor in greater Cincinnati. And I put my finance hat on, my CFO hat on, and I started looking at what those things cost and what I was paying for them. And I'm like, yeah, I should probably be in that business. And
There
so
you
it started me down a path, and the good Lord blessed me to meet some folks that had a similar interest and a similar vision of what this could be. It's a niche, really. Trailer leasing, and those guys are a whole different transportation play. Um, we really are an alternative to warehouse space. So that's where I see the connective tissue to real estate
go. Yeah.
is a lot of times for industrial real estate brokers, for example, we're a pretty big a hit with them because they want to rent 100,000 square foot facilities, 200,000 square foot facilities. When that customer calls and says, "Hey, I need like 10,000 more square feet. You got anything for me?" Instead of having to find a building, negotiate a lease, and deal with all that, they say, "Hey, I've got these guys, Warehouse on Wheels. They can help you out." And so they're still the hero with their customer. They're the solving the problem, and then we ride in with the solution.
All right. So you have extra industrial space for the user that doesn't have enough. I
Mhm.
have an empty warehouse right now, John. Do you have any
Yeah.
tenants for me in Broomfield, Colorado? I have
Yes, sir.
20,000 feet.
It is an interesting time, quite honestly, because with the chaos of tariffs, what I have found is in 18, when the administration did this the first time, everyone sort of overreacted in the preparation and overstocking phase. And this time around, because the policy changes every 15 minutes on a tweet, some folks are sitting on their hands. And I truly believe we are in an industrial recession. I know what the headlines say, and my business doesn't serve NVIDIA or data centers or anything like that. I truly believe if you look through to the statistics and specifically around industrial, and I think it's what we're seeing in the transportation sector as well from a trucking standpoint, we are in an industrial recession.
So an industrial, let's help me define that. So
Yeah.
industrial recession, high vacancies. Tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah. So what I see is just reduced production from that industrial footprint that we have here remaining in the country. I think that, I have some anecdotal information from customers. I got guys that manufacture trailers, for example. One in particular, they've actually scaled back to 1 day production. So they were producing trailers 5 days a week, and they're literally making trailers only 1 day a week. And so I think you see pockets of that. So if it was tied to the actual conversion and making of things in this country, I think you're seeing softness. I don't think that we're running the same levels of overtime and manufacturing facilities. I mean, the import data, you see it most recently with the holiday peak season. It happened probably a month ahead of normal, and now it's over. So it's just not happening at the same velocity. And I think it's because of the confusion. I think there's still people burning off stock and inventory from the COVID days and the buildup and so forth. And so I think that's all translated to a general, I would say, malaise.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think real estate in general is either in or past a recession, and I could make that
Yeah.
argument.
Mhm.
I'll also say that real estate typically leads and comes out first. So first in, first out of recessions.
Mhm.
Now we're getting some data on the unemployment and are expecting a rate. Everyone's expecting this rate cut. By the time this airs, we're going to know.
Right.
But so how is that? How is that impacting your business?
Yeah. I think that's a great analogy you mentioned about real estate. We're a lot like that too. So a lot of times people think because we're trailers, we're transportation, we're trucking. That's not our play. We service manufacturers and distributors really don't service transportation in any way. And so what we see, like you said, is we're last in, first out. So our flexible solution at the end of an economic cycle is very popular because people can't build fast enough. Warehouse utilization rates are very high, occupancy that is very high, and so we're an optimal solution. Then when you get to the depths of a recession, when no one wants to commit the long-term capital to then get back to building and expanding, we're that first pressure relief valve as things start to return to a sense of balance. And so we are seeing early green shoots, but not to the extent I had hoped for with the tariff chaos. Because a lot of times that sort of unknown will cause folks to buy ahead, to stock, to have some inconsistencies in how they actually operate relative to the footprint that they've built, which is to our benefit. So it's an absolutely interesting time. I believe the psychology of the rate cut will, in fact, probably break some things loose. And it'll be interesting to see how fast.
Okay, I love how you describe that. Everyone wants to be the last into a recession and the
That's
first
right.
out, right? Everyone
That's
wants
right.
that. So I like how you described that. I think you're probably right. I never thought of it like that. Would
Mhm.
that be would you think that that's true for all of storage, or is it
Mhm.
specific to like the mobile storage like you're doing?
I think it's just the flexible storage. So I think there was a journal article maybe about 6 weeks ago that talked about the small footprint flex storage and the current demand spike that they were seeing. So much like your facility you talked about, the 20,000 square feet, I think having the flexibility to subdivide that to be that sort of pressure relief valve for folks, I think it helps that opportunity. It creates more of a gap for you to in fact be that last in, first out.
Okay, maybe I should rethink my strategy here and go into the storage business.
I think it's important to know the people around you who manage supply chains. So think of warehouse managers, logistics managers. So as you're building your LinkedIn profile and your connections, it's probably not folks that you typically would target with that opportunity. But I would encourage folks that have that sort of size footprint. I mean, you become my competitor, but hey, hey, there's more than enough to go around. We can figure this out. Um, I think it needs to be part of your strategy for sure.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting because I have one of the challenges I'm having with this one is parking.
Hmm.
Parking, especially in this flex space, is
Sure.
pretty important because
Mhm,
you could make it an office, right? Then you need a lot of parking, or it could be
mhm,
manufacturing. We don't need hardly any at all. But so mine has no parking,
mhm.
and it's got this really weird mezz level with underneath the mezz is about 8 foot ceiling height. So
Yeah,
we have 30
yeah.
foot, we have 30-foot ceiling. And then under this mezz is 8. And so it's kind of killing me.
Mhm.
Maybe I could do like little tuck under storage or something.
Well, I think, or maybe even that part of the building becomes that luxury garage thing for the guy that maybe
Oh
is the
yeah, the
car
man cave.
collector, and it becomes
Yeah.
his man cave, or they can put his buddy's pickleball court for their man cave or something. But yeah, I hear you, and I think, but having that whatever that design is with that most flexibility, and in most of these instances, what I would describe to you that short-term storage, they just need enough room to get the truck in there to empty it. It's not generally somewhere they man day in and day out, so you might solve for your parking issue. It's just, do you have the dock access? How easy is it to get in and out of a dry van trailer, which is at that dock height?
Yeah, that's interesting. So you were a customer and
Mhm,
then you fell in love with the business because
mhm.
you saw I'm actually curious. Did you just go out and start buying your own trailers for storage instead of renting them first and then go into the business, or
Well, so that was the first stop. Is like, well, why don't we just buy these things?
just
Why
buy
am I
them?
doing this? Well, they come with a certain level of maintenance. And so there's brakes, tires, lights. There's a federal certification that goes with it in order for them to roll up and down the road. So it's that buy versus rent question everybody goes through. It's just like the Bobcat, that if my wife would let me buy it, I'd love to have a Bobcat to just go around and move dirt and do stuff, but it really doesn't make sense for me to do that. And also, what we offer is that flexibility. So again, competing against warehouse space, if you compare us, I'm generally about 4 times less expensive on a per square footage basis. I'm a 30-day evergreen rental agreement. So you rent from me, and every 30 days we kind of re-up the deal. So if you're done with it, you send it back, we're good to go, you're off the hook. And so buying them, then I become an owner. I got to maintain it. I got to do, and there's things that go with that. And so that's why it really proved to be an optimal rental solution, in my opinion.
And then on the flip side, when you do own it, you're operating it as a company. I can imagine it could be a logistic nightmare at times because what you just said is I put less commitment here in my notes, but it's really they're not tied to a 5 or 7 or 10 year lease. They're tied to a 30-day lease. So you could be getting these things back at any time.
Absolutely.
How do you manage that?
We're good. Uh,
Big yard. I assume big outdoor storage yards and
we do. So each location generally is about 5 acres of gravel. And these things, quite honestly, they don't churn at that velocity. So, basically our average rental period, while it's a 30-day evergreen contract, usually turns into 24, 28, 36 months. And so once folks really appreciate and kind of embrace the solution, we're really sticky. And then the other thing we do is, I like to say Ritz-Carlton service at the Hampton Inn price. So we're high touch, high customer intimacy. You're going to get white glove service on the delivery. Your fork truck driver drives a blade through the side of it. We'll get it fixed. We'll get you all taken care of. We'll get you back up and running. And then we're really again, balancing that equation to warehouse space as the alternative, and then also looking at what other competitive alternatives and making sure our price point is sort of mid price point, if you will.
Okay. So your ideal client is industrial user. It sounds like pretty large industrial user that just needs more space.
Yeah,
Pretty simple.
but even the 3PL guys. So any of your listeners that have decided they've taken a position in industrial warehouse space and they've got tenants that have a bunch of stuff in the parking lot or containers on the ground or whatever, we're a great alternative. I find that when I spend time with the landlords, they really appreciate the fact that our trailers show up, they look good, so it doesn't become an eyesore. They're safe, dark, and dry. So when they're sitting on the yard, there's not a risk added to that. And so we're landlord friendly too.
Okay. That's awesome. What I want to do now, John, is to dig in a little bit and see how we could extract some knowledge from your brain and input it and deposit it into our listener's brain. So you have done very well as a CEO of WOW, and you just told me you're going from 37 trailers to a target of 100,000 trailers. That's pretty big trajectory.
Sure.
So let me help me understand as a business owner, how do you do that? Like, what are the systems? What are the things that are in your mind that you're thinking about to grow a company to that size?
So I would take you back to the very beginning. I guess at the very beginning with the 2 locations, as we thought about that and we knew we wanted to scale that. As I built the organization, I was very thoughtful of that being the ultimate goal. So I felt like I had to design kind of a cultural infrastructure, if you will, that really embraced that or set that expectation. So a couple of things we did. One, we've really bought into the concepts of extreme ownership. It's a book by a couple of retired Navy SEALs, Jocko and Leif, who I actually met before the book was right about the time the book was released at a dinner. It's a great story for another time, but I sat between them for a couple hours during dinner and heard all the stories and was just hooked. But really what that did is it just kept it so simple and it defined our kind of operating code, if you will. And so as we hire people, we train them on those concepts. We have them read the book. We train them on the concepts, and then we continue to invest in their development of those principles. So that allowed us then to create this business where we have a very small corporate function because each of our markets is run by a local market CEO. That person, he or she hires, fires, buys, and sells and runs that business to a discrete P&L. So if anything, I would share with your folks, because I think about being around real estate and real estate investment, it's that you have to build it beyond yourself. It can't just be beholden to you because 1, that's going to slow down the pace of scale. And 2, it's probably going to challenge your exit strategy. Because if whoever's coming in to buy that business, if that's your ultimate goal, is going to view the risk of you being so concentrated in the business that it's going to dilute the value and may make it impossible to sell it. Not impossible. That's an extreme word, but I think deflate the value. So I think it's building that core infrastructure and that basic understanding. This is how we're going to operate. These are the rules of engagement, which I then tie to what I call the bus philosophy, which is you can be on the bus and agree, you can be on the bus and disagree. But if you don't want to go to the next stop, you probably shouldn't be on the bus. And so when I say you can disagree, I want to have that creative discourse. I want to have that discussion around, okay, well, wait a minute, going down this street probably be quicker than going down this street or whatever the case might be, because you're hiring people for their intelligence as much as anything. And so when you take extreme ownership, you couple it with a bus philosophy, it built something that was then scalable, and that's allowed us to go really fast.
Do you use any other books like Traction or E-Myth or anything like that to help you?
A couple other things that we've kind of grounded in. There's a book called Humanocracy that talks about flat organizations, and so we've really tried to employ many of those concepts. It gets harder at scale when you got 37 locations and 37 kind of local CEOs. They can't all report to me, but we're trying our darndest to make that happen. I always joke, I don't want the vice presidents at the bank running around. I don't want that org structure at all. And so we use that. From a sales and marketing standpoint, we've really adopted the challenger methodology. And so that's very kind of foundational to what we do. But we keep it pretty simple. I mean, again, our business isn't overly complex. So if we can have extreme ownership, if we can respect the rules of humanocracy and what comes with that and the using the tools in the toolbox to help you execute your business, but own your business. I think that's really what we need.
This episode is brought to you by Pine Financial Group. Pine Financial is a private lender specializing in short-term rehab lending to real estate investors. Got a property that needs some love? We can help. We are able to offer funding solutions because we raise private money from individual investors. With more than 15 years of experience, Pine offers passive investors an alternative that provides stability, consistency, and security to your portfolio. If you like real estate but want to avoid the ups and downs and effort, a Pine mortgage fund could be a perfect fit for you. Accredited investors will experience an 8% preferred return and profit sharing. Diversify your portfolio out of Wall Street and into Main Street with a Pine Financial Group mortgage fund. Get more information at pinefinancialgroup.com. That's pinefinancialgroup.com. One of our values here at Pine is responsibility. And that is two things involved there. We're responsible for our clients' success, and we're responsible for our own decisions. So I truly believe in that. And I got that part of that value came from the Extreme Ownership book. So I know the book, and I know he's written some other books too. Jocko has anyway.
Sure.
So now I'm dying to hear the story of the dinner.
Well, I'll give you the quick version. So this was back, I don't even know how many years ago it was. So I don't know if it was 13 or anyway, it was years ago because the book came out. I think they're on their 10th anniversary. So it's probably 2014, 2015. I walk into this dinner late and there's only one seat left. It's in the very back of the room and it's between these two dudes that look like they are straight out of central casting for some branch of the military or they're a bodyguard because I'm in a room of other C-level executives. This is a private equity conference. And so I'm like, oh, this ought to be fun. So I take my seat and, we start chatting it up. And lo and behold, I believe Leif was Chris Kyle's direct supervisor, the American Sniper. And then Jocko was Leif's boss. So that's kind of how all this started because that was about the time through American Sniper and how all that was coming about. And they went on to start telling stories about Ramadi and the things that are in the book. And I'm just captivated. And I'm thinking, man, this is really cool. I have no idea who these guys are, but I really enjoyed this conversation. Well, the dinner finishes and then they get up and they start presenting this book. And they never really mentioned the book during the early conversations, but it just captivated me. And there was a line at the very end of their presentation. And I think Jocko still uses it sometimes when they talk about the book, but they had been in the Battle of Ramadi and in hell and just really taking care of business, right? And they're getting ready to leave. And the day before they're supposed to hand over to the next SEAL team, they get intel that this guy they've been looking for, they have him, they know where he's at, they need to take action. And so they're about to leave. They could just hand it off to the next team. But Jocko gets the guys together and he says, look, we've been here for months. We know the terrain. We know the environment. We know what we're after. We know how to do this. Do we want to hand it off to these guys that are brand new, haven't experienced anything, the risk that come with that? And his line was, if not us, then who? And I have used that time and time again with my leaders and said, look, guys, complain all you want and it ain't fun. And sometimes the work's hard, but if not us, then who? And that has moved more conversations along for me in my journey with this team that that was gold to me. So yeah, we're all bought in, man.
Your team responds to that, huh?
I do because it's part of the recruitment process. So as we go through the interview process, I'm usually the last one to interview most of the key managers in the business. And so the interview is more about me telling you, this is how this is going to go. So if you're good with this, my team's already told me you're the guy, the gal, the whatever. Are you good with this? This is the cultural expectation. And the other thing we do is when you join the company, you get this box of swag. So you can see my custom Jordans behind me. We don't put those in every box.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about those actually.
you get the good stuff. We like to look good, play good. But in that is a letter, and it's called The Ultimate Expectation. And it's from a book I read called Don't Just Do What I Ask You to Do, or I'm probably messing up the title. But anyway, in that letter, it talks about you've been hired to do a job, but you've also been hired with the expectation that you are to take action and you have the authority and my expectation that you will do this to act in our mutual best interest without ever asking. So if it's to make us safer, if it's to serve the customer, if it's to advance our business in our mutual best interest, you have the unequivocal right and expectation to make that decision and execute. And so again, I try to keep it simple. There's not four other things that we're going to focus on. It's the principle of extreme ownership, it's the ultimate expectation, and let's go to work.
Sounds like you were in the military.
I was not. I was not tough enough for that. So
you weren't in the trenches with Rocco.
I'm extremely grateful for those that are and have a great deal of respect. Some of my best team members are former service members, and that's a hell of a training ground. And I'll take them every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love this, what you're saying about the swag bag and the expectations.
Mhm.
One thing that drives me crazy about people on your team is when they don't own anything. Like, that's not a great way to say it, but let's say you get the feedback, and John, you probably got this feedback from your team in the past where they'll say, well, that's not my job. That's not in my job description, or,
Right.
and that's one of the things that just drive me. That's my short fuse when I hear that.
Mhm. Sure.
So in our, what we do is make them sign a little employee contract, and inside that, the very last thing is, and anything else that will help the team. But it's like, it is.
You have an ultimate
agreement.
expectation.
Exactly. But I think that might be the small print. This is very good how you did it. So I might start to implement this. So thank you for that.
I would tell you, Kevin, one of the things I take away from extreme ownership. So in that example that you shared with me, I hear that too.
I'm sure you do. It's like,
and where I have to check my ego and look in the mirror is reflect on where I didn't properly communicate that expectation.
100%.
And so if we all keep grinding it back to that understanding, that level of understanding, it makes it so much clearer. And I have to be full of humility. I have to be willing to own my mistakes. And you can ask my team. I show up on our weekly Tuesday call and I own them. And when we got to make hard decisions, when we got to let team members go, when we got to make other difficult business decisions, the buck stops with me. And the other thing I do is I actually give every one of our employees my personal cell phone number when they start with us. And that's the same number my mama calls me on, my kids, my wife. And I tell them, look, call me anytime. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. If you got a problem, did you talk to your boss first? We got to honor the lines of communication, lines of authority. If you did and you didn't get a proper resolution, talk to me about what you're feeling. How's it going? What's going on? Can't promise you I'll fix it, but I can guarantee you I will hear you out and I will do my level best to find a path. And so again, it's about action and putting your money where your mouth is.
Two questions. How often do you get those calls? And when you do you require that they come with the problem and a potential solution?
I half-heartedly say, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. I usually just use that with my direct reports, my C-level guys, just to sort of check their egos. No, I just, one, the calls aren't that frequent. Okay. Right. And there are folks that abuse that privilege. Okay. I'll get a good old boy that'll tie one on a Saturday and let me know what he thinks. And my wife thinks I'm nuts, but
okay, that's funny.
It's all part of the culture. It's just, this is what we are. We're renting trailers. We're solving problems. If I tell my customers I'm going to deliver Ritz-Carlton service at the Hampton Inn price, I darn sure can't not deliver Ritz-Carlton service to my team. And so that's why that's so important to me. I don't require you show up with a solution, but the way the conversation will evolve, it'll come down to, okay, you're in my shoes. What are we going to do about this? And that's the kind of level of conversation you have to have, I think.
Yeah, one of my C-level guys was struggling with this, and he was getting just like constant questions, like a revolving door in his office, right? And he couldn't get anything done. So him and I were working pretty closely together to try to solve this. And one of the things that my business coach is always telling me is, did you FSO, or you're teaching your team to FSO? And it's figure shit out.
Yeah.
Did you FSO before you came in here? But what we ended up coming up with was, hey, you got to ask yourself these 5 questions. And maybe it's, did you ask ChatGPT? Maybe it's that. But whatever the 5 questions are before you knock on this door, because if you didn't, then we're going to have a problem. But if you went through those and you still have a problem, then I definitely want to help you. Oh my gosh, John, that changed the world for him. Like, now he's got time to actually get work done, and people seem happy. They're more empowered. It's just for us, it was like helping them help themselves more. It's give a fish, teach a fish, right? Yeah. So
teach them to fish instead of giving them a fish.
Yeah. So we've been
and
really
much of
focused
what
on
you
that.
describe it is embodied in those principles of extreme ownership. And that's one of the reasons why I just continue to anchor to that. To me, it's just such a simple structure. It's easy to remember. It's teachable. And I have yet to find an instance where I can't just step back, as Jocko says, high point your weapon and assess the situation, and it takes you back to one of those principles. So that's why it's been so foundational for us.
Yeah, I love this. I'm gonna go back and read that book again, and maybe the way you're describing this to me is this is one of those once a year type of things. I used to do that with Think and Grow Rich when I was very young and
Yeah.
trying to be an entrepreneur. I'd read that or listen to it that's back when they had the CDs. Remember those CDs?
I had 8 in the trunk of my car, man. I thought I was bad.
You had the eight disc changer. Yeah. Yeah, me too. That was great. But every year I would listen to that CD, right? And it really did change my life and set me up to where I've been able to have a little bit of success. And the way you're describing this to me, even though I have read the book, it didn't land as powerful for me as it did for you. So I feel like I need to go back and give it a go again.
Well, there's a great thing they do. It's like 2.5, 3 days called muster, where they'll take you in the room with 1,000 other people and you'll get the experience, and it's the rock concert like. So it's impactful in that way, and that you get the energy and the vibe. But I always tell my guys when I send them, the other thing I'm known to say is it can't be a Rocky moment. So we all remember when we went to see Rocky for the first time and we walked out of the theater and like, I'm working out, I'm doing one-handed push-ups, I'm going to beat Apollo Creed kind of thing, or whatever, Drago. And 3 days later, you're doing the same bad habits you always did. And so whenever I send folks to things like that, or we have these corporate events where we're building momentum and everybody's feeling good, I'm like, can't be a Rocky moment. You got to take it beyond that.
So funny you bring up Rocky. I got to tell you a story. This is totally off topic, but it's so funny. So I have 2 girls. They both play soccer. Now they're a little older now. They're 15 and 17. But several years ago, like I loved Rocky, right? And it would do the same thing. I'd get all fired up, like I'm gonna go like crush it. And so on the way to the soccer games, like we'd be playing the Rocky theme song and we'd be listening to it in the car. And then we'd get into the parking lot and I'd roll the windows down and crank it up, and they got so embarrassed. And so they're in high school now. And the other day I was like, okay, we got to go get Rocky going. You guys are a little nervous about this game. Okay, let's get this going. And they were like, they bailed out. They're like, nope, you're not taking us. So funny. All right,
you need to find something from Kendrick Lamar or something more current.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he fires me up like I'm gonna watch you guys win. I'm gonna cheer. Yeah, let's do it. All right, what I want to do here, John, is go through a couple of my notes, things that I learned and what I think our listeners can benefit from. And then what I would love for you to do, if you could think of something, is give me a last piece of advice. I know the extreme ownership, there's a ton of information in there. I'm encouraging the listeners to go listen to that. But if there's something else like the listener maybe they have a couple of houses, maybe they have a warehouse or 2, or there's some commercial investors that listen also. But it's a lot of newer folks that are just trying to get going and they don't understand employees. And we're talking about CEOs and all of this, and they can't relate to that so well. So if you could help me with a piece of, like a nugget that will help them. So we talked about your background and how you were first a customer, and then you fell in love with the business. You saw the numbers, I guess, pretty easily from renting to owning the trucks. And now you have a company. You're the CEO of Wow, 37,000 trailers going to 100. I'm psyched for you. And what we're talking about is flex storage here, and I call it mobile storage, but I don't know if that's the right term. Is that the right term?
That's what we say. Yeah.
Okay, so flex storage, and you said that it could be any flex storage space is usually the last in and the first out of a recession. So if we're concerned about what might be happening with tariffs and conflicts on other parts of the world and unemployment spiking and these sorts of things, this could be a potential great investment opportunity, some flex storage. What's been some of the benefits of your specific business is it's less expensive and there's no commitments. So for tenants that have a storage need and they want it in their yard, this is a fantastic opportunity. I didn't even know this existed, to be quite honest with you. I knew the annex, like those little annex boxes, but I never thought about the actual trucks.
Sure.
And then we got into building a company and how you do that successfully. And you said it a couple of times without actually saying it, but it really comes down to the leadership team. You said that because you're so big, you need leaders in each division. We have real estate divisions, but you have like regional divisions. That's how you separated up your company. And each
Right.
one has a CEO. And then you got to start with the end in mind. So we talked a little bit about the infrastructure and building from the ground up with where you want to be instead of trying to change your infrastructure as you go. And you always got to build it and think bigger than you. Otherwise, it's going to crush marketability and values and that sort of thing. You love the bus philosophy. We talk about that with Pine a lot. Look, are you the right person on the bus? And then once I get you on the bus, how do I know that you're in the right seat? And sometimes it means moving seats around, even though you're on the bus. If you're on the wrong bus, get off at the next stop. We talked about the CEOs and then extreme ownership, your story with Jocko. And then what I loved is your swag that you give new employees and how you create a letter like, this is the expectations. Welcome to the company. So I really, really got a lot out of that. Is there anything I missed here?
No, I think covered it well, and I'm thinking about your challenge to me to something to add. And what I would tell you is, so my son has started this wonderful little business in Granbury, Texas. He's building houses, and I have no skill whatsoever for the trades. So I have a checkbook as my toolbox. That's how I operate. But kid's taken to it, and he's building these wonderful starter homes, and he's really on a run. And so I think about the people that might be listening to this that might be in that exact same scenario. Um, and when he runs into difficulties, most times, if I point him back to those concepts of extreme ownership, not to beat a dead horse, but that I got to own it. How did I fail in my communication? So as you think about the difficulties in your day, whether it's dealing with contractors, real estate agents, tenants, whatever that might be, that idea of stepping back, checking your ego, and thinking about really, how could I have done this better, will save you so much more pain and suffering for the next 3 of those events that won't hopefully happen, or when they do, you'll be better prepared to handle them. And I'm seeing him live it every day. I'm very, very proud of him. My son, Chandler Brooks, he's doing a wonderful job and really building houses for first-time homeowners and really in that affordable space. So kid's doing a great job. But
That's
even
great.
in that environment, whether you're running a 37 location, 37,000 trailer company, or you have 2 crews that are building 2 houses for you, or a crew that's gutting a house for you, or a contractor that's replacing the roof on one of your properties, or a tenant, whatever that is, I firmly believe that the principles that are illustrated in that text and the thought process behind it, they really do apply.
Yeah, and oftentimes, and when I hear you saying that, what I'm hearing is oftentimes the problems with tenants or contractors or whatever it is just communication. It usually comes down to that. So if they do something that you don't like, maybe you didn't communicate your expectation well enough. And so that's how you would take ownership of that. I'm assuming that's where you were sort of going.
Absolutely.
That's what I heard when you said that. So yeah, again, extreme ownership. I'm gonna go listen to it again. It's in my Audible. It's way down the list because it's been years and
It's been a
years
while.
since I've listened to it, but
Yeah.
I'll definitely have to pull that up. So what can we do for you and how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah, so really the only social I'm on is LinkedIn. So would be happy to connect with anyone. I actually put a post out about a month ago just offering to talk to people. I really feel the need to pay it forward. And so if someone's trying to figure out private equity, or they hear something we talked about today and they have a question about it, I'm more than willing to jump on a quick 15, 30-minute phone call with folks and just try to be helpful. Now, again, it's worth what you pay for it, and from a slow-witted bald man, but these lumps on my head are for a reason. And so the other thing I think I can bring to the table is I have a pretty extensive network. So I may not know the answer, but I probably know somebody that does and is willing to also pitch in and help. So connect with me on LinkedIn. Look us up at wowtrailers.com. Please consider us for any of your temporary mobile storage needs. And really just grateful for the opportunity to spend some time with you today.
That's a pretty fantastic offer, man, that you're doing that. And I know that sometimes your time is the most valuable. Oftentimes it's the most valuable thing that you have. And to offer to give that away is pretty special. So if you're listening and you want to take advantage of that, we'll put the link in. I think I have that. Yep. LinkedIn.com, JN Brooks IV. So 6.
I'm the fourth.
The fourth. Yeah. So we'll make sure that's in the show notes. connect with him on LinkedIn. So for you, John, I just want to say thank you so much. I know you're super busy. You're running a
It's all
pretty
good.
large organization here, and you came and you decided to spend 30, 40 minutes with us, adding value to our listeners. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No, thank you for
For
what
the
you're doing.
listener, yeah, for the listener, look, there's lots of podcasts out there. There's lots of different things you could be doing instead of listening to this podcast right now or other podcasts you could be listening to. And for that, I'm so extremely grateful for you. I hope you got value out of this like I did. If you did, please 5-star review, share this with a friend, and I hope you make this day a great one. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did, please be sure to follow and leave us a review. Oh yeah, and tell a friend.
We were in negotiations.
Investing in real estate, they're winning, they're making money.